In a kingdom ruled by both power and peace, a mighty lion and a gentle lamb must journey together to survive a devastating drought. As they face the wilderness side by side, they discover that true strength lies not in force alone, but in the courage to embrace both strength and gentleness. A lesson that will forever change their kingdom and perhaps the hearts of those who hear their story. The air was thick with the warmth of a late afternoon sun, casting a golden glow over the Galilean countryside. In a quiet olive grove, Jesus and his disciples took refuge from their journey, their bodies weary but their spirits stirred by the prospect of hearing their teacher's words. The grove was nestled among rugged hills, where twisted olive trees stood as silent witnesses, their ancient branches stretching toward the heavens as though in prayer. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, casting a mosaic of shadows across the disciples as they settled into a loose circle around Jesus. Each disciple carried his own questions, his own silent burdens. John, always watchful, fixed his gaze intently on Jesus, wondering what wisdom he might share today. Beside him, Peter sat on the edge of his seat, his broad shoulders tense, as though he were bracing himself for something profound. The others sat in reflective silence, awaiting their teacher's voice. Peter, the most passionate among them, wrestled with a question that had gnawed at him for some time. He admired Jesus' strength, his unwavering conviction, and his power. Yet, there was a gentleness about him that Peter could not fully grasp, a softness that seemed at odds with the strength he revered. Finally, breaking the silence, Peter asked, "Teacher, I have seen you perform miracles, rebuke Pharisees, and comfort the suffering. How is it that you carry such strength yet show such gentleness?" Jesus looked at Peter with eyes that seemed to pierce through every layer of his being, a look both powerful and tender. "Let me tell you a story," he replied softly, and the disciples leaned in, feeling that they were about to hear something that would change the way they understood their teacher, and themselves. In a land beyond human reach, hidden deep within the wilderness, lay a kingdom where animals roamed freely, a place where creatures of every kind lived and spoke in harmony. Towering trees surrounded this realm, their branches woven together like a protective canopy, filtering the light in dapples and shadows. Rivers wound their way through the forest, flowing like veins of silver, bringing life and beauty to all they touched. In this kingdom there lived a lion named Arya, a creature whose golden mane seemed to capture the very light of the sun. Arya was a mighty ruler, known and respected by all who dwelled in the kingdom. His roar could shake the ground and his gaze could silence the boldest of creatures. He was strength incarnate, and his authority was unquestionable. But beneath this powerful exterior lay a heart that was often lonely. Arya felt a burden of solitude, one he did not understand. Though he was surrounded by creatures who feared and respected him, he longed for a companion who could see beyond his roar, who could understand the heart behind his strength. One day, as he stood at the edge of a quiet river, he saw his own reflection in the water. The image staring back at him was fierce, powerful, and commanding, but it was also alone. Is strength all that matters? Arya asked his reflection, his voice a low, contemplative growl. The river offered no reply, and Arya continued his patrol, the weight of his question lingering in the silent forest around him. In a meadow not far from Arya's territory, a lamb named Ara grazed peacefully, surrounded by a carpet of wildflowers. The meadow was a place of delicate beauty, with soft grasses and gentle hills that rolled like waves across the land. Ara moved quietly, her steps as soft as the petals that danced in the breeze. She was a creature of unmatched gentleness, known for her kindness and calm spirit. The animals of the meadow looked up to her, finding comfort in her gentle presence and wise words. Ara's heart, however, carried its own burden. For all her gentleness, Ara sometimes wondered if she was truly enough. She had seen the strength of creatures like Arya and wondered if her kindness alone could make a difference. Though beloved by many, she feared her gentleness was too soft, too small to matter in a world where power often prevailed. She longed to be of greater help, to protect those she loved, but all she had was her compassion, her gentleness, her faith. As she looked out over the meadow, she whispered to herself, "I may not be strong like Arya, but perhaps there is a purpose for my gentleness." Her words, though spoken softly, filled the meadow with a quiet strength, a declaration that resonated through the petals and grasses, as if nature itself were bearing witness. One day, a dark shadow fell over the land as a terrible drought gripped the kingdom. Rivers dried to a trickle, and the lush green grasses turned brown and brittle under the scorching sun. The animals grew weak and desperate, searching for any remaining sources of water and food. Arya, the mighty lion, felt the weight of their suffering deeply. He roamed his territory, watching the creatures he protected struggle and fail in the face of the relentless drought. His strength, once a source of pride, now felt futile against the forces of nature. His heart ached with a newfound humility, realizing that for all his might, he could not control the sun or bring water to his people. One evening, as he lay by a dry riverbed, Arya let out a roar of frustration, his voice echoing through the empty valley. "What good is my strength if I cannot save my kingdom?" he cried, his voice heavy with despair. The silence that followed was deafening, a reminder of his powerlessness in the face of nature's wrath. For the first time in his life, Arya felt truly helpless. He was a king without a way to protect his people, and the weight of that knowledge left him feeling small, humbled, and deeply alone. As hope began to fade and the animals grew resigned to their suffering, Arya came to Arya, her gentle gaze meeting his troubled eyes. She stood by his side, her small frame a stark contrast to his powerful build. Arya's presence was like a soft light in the darkness, and Arya, though proud and mighty, felt an unexpected relief at her closeness. She spoke softly, her words like a balm to his aching heart. "I know of a place," she said, her voice filled with quiet certainty. "A hidden valley where the streams still flow and grass still grows. It's a difficult journey, but together we can reach it." Arya looked at her, his pride battling with his desperation. Could this gentle lamb know what he, a mighty lion, did not? But he saw a quiet resolve in her eyes, a courage that surprised him. Though his heart resisted, he found himself nodding. "You are only a lamb," he said, his voice low. "Why should I follow you?" Arya looked back at him, unafraid, her gaze steady. "Because strength alone cannot always lead the way," she replied. Her words touched something deep within him, and for the first time, Arya found himself humbled by a creature smaller and gentler than himself. The journey to the hidden valley was filled with challenges that tested both Arya and Arya in ways they could never have anticipated. They traveled through rocky landscapes and arid plains, each step demanding a new level of endurance. Arya's strength carried them through the harshest paths, his powerful frame protecting Arya from dangers along the way. But as the sun beat down and exhaustion set in, he began to falter. His steps grew heavy, his strength sapped by the relentless journey. It was during these moments of weakness that Arya's presence became a source of solace. Her gentle spirit, her unshakable calm, soothed him in a way he had never known. She encouraged him with quiet words, reminding him of their purpose, of the lives that depended on them. Arya found himself drawing strength from her gentleness, realizing that his power alone could not sustain them. Arya too found courage in his presence, a sense of security she had never felt before. Together they became more than companions. They became a team, each one bringing something the other lacked. After days of hardship, they finally reached the hidden valley, a place of breathtaking beauty untouched by the drought. Lush grasses stretched before them and crystal-clear streams sparkled under the gentle light. The sight of the valley filled them with a profound sense of peace, a reward for their perseverance. The animals who had followed them rejoiced, drinking deeply from the cool waters and resting in the shade. As Arya and Arya watched, they felt a shared sense of purpose, a realization that their journey had been more than a physical one. Arya understood now that strength without gentleness was hollow, and Arya saw that gentleness could lead where strength alone could not. They lay side by side, the lion and the lamb, each understanding that they were stronger together, each appreciating the gifts the other brought. Back in the olive grove, Jesus concluded his story, and the disciples sat in stunned silence, the weight of his words settling upon them. They looked at Jesus, feeling that they had glimpsed a truth that had eluded them before. They saw now that their teacher was more than a leader, he was a living example of both the lion and the lamb. Peter, who had always admired strength, felt his heart stir with a newfound respect for gentleness. John, who had always loved Jesus' compassion, felt the strength in that love more deeply than ever before. Jesus looked at each of them, his gaze filled with compassion and understanding. "This story is about more than a lion and a lamb," he said softly. "It is about each of you, about the balance you must seek within yourselves. Strength without gentleness can lead to harm, and gentleness without strength can lead to weakness." The disciples reflected on Jesus' words, feeling a deep resonance within their souls. Each of them saw in the story a mirror of their own journey. Peter, with his fiery spirit, realized that his strength needed tempering, that his loyalty could be fierce without being harsh. John, gentle and loving, saw that even his compassion required courage to stand firm in truth. They understood that to truly follow Jesus meant embracing both the lion's strength and the lamb's gentleness. "This is why you are here," Jesus continued, his voice filled with a quiet power. "To bring peace, to stand firm in love, to be both strong and gentle. Only then will you be able to bring the light of God to a world that desperately needs it." As they left the grove, the disciples walked with a renewed sense of purpose. The story of the lion and the lamb had woven itself into their hearts, a reminder of the balance they would need to carry into the world. Peter, usually bold and brash, walked with a gentler step, while John, usually reserved, held his head high, feeling the strength of his own compassion. They glanced at each other, a quiet understanding passing between them. They were ready to be lions with hearts of lambs, following their teacher's example. "Let us go forth as lions with the hearts of lambs," Peter whispered to John, his voice filled with quiet resolve. Together they moved forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that they carried within them the strength and gentleness of the lion and the lamb. This is end of the story. Comment amen if you believe in Jesus' blessings. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.